Tonight on Pia.
I changed the name to John Fluvog, and when I did that, I suddenly became a designer.
Like nothing more than a good pair of shoes.
I don't get shoes. I mean, I like your shoes.
I look at shoes and go, those are very nice, and I'm thinking that I'm showing my feminine side.
I can tell pretty quick whether a committee designed it or whether a person designed it.
I bought 2 pairs, put them on my Visa. They were $1,000 each, and I had no idea.
Actually, I'm now even moving to purses, which I'm really starting to worry about myself.
Now this is going to be fun. I have a shameful secret. It's a deep-seated and tragic flaw in my character. I buy too many shoes, chronically. But I know, my sisters, I'm not alone in this vice. And here's the truly ironic part. 2 out of 3 of the pairs of shoes that I obsessively purchase are completely unwearable. But when I'm in the store, as I strike a Vogue-like pose for the mirror, I am overcome with a desire so strong to own these shoes, to be this Amazonian goddess. In my cruel shoes with the sky-high heels and the chains and the leather and the buckles and the platforms, I could be Mila Jovovich in Resident Evil, or Gisele Bündchen striding down the runway in Brazil. I know you know what I'm talking about. And so does our next guest. He is one of the most original, individualistic, and hippest shoe designers anywhere. He's Vancouver's own John Fluvog. This year, celebrating the 40th anniversary of his original Fox and Fluvog store in Gastown, Vancouver Museum has launched a special exhibit to honor his styles and his history.
I just started working in a shoe store on Hastings Street. It was called Shepherd's, it's gone now. But the manager of it was Peter Fox. I guess Peter says to himself, well, I got this cool kid working for me. He looks cool, acts cool, seems pretty solid. So he confides in me and he says, you know, John, I'm thinking about going out on my own. So, cool. He says, you want to come with me? And I go, sure. And then he says, well, what about your dad, my father? Would he lend us any money? My dad's not wealthy, but he's a saver, he's frugal, he's Norwegian, right? Came out of depression, so we go see my dad. My dad says, okay, I'll lend you this $13,000, $13,500, if you make my son a 50% partner. And I'm going, yeah, baby. I remember sitting in the kitchen going, right, I'm making about $55 a week. Our salary's gonna be the same. Pete needs about 70 to live. My salary will go from 55 to 70. Hey, I'm in, what? What's wrong with this? And that's how it started. I was sort of the good-looking kid, dressed well, front guy. Yeah, and I really, at that point, I didn't know I could draw. I was, quite insecure in a lot of areas in my life, truthfully. 10 years later, I buy him out. He goes off and does his own line, and I start on my own. So I'm now still Fox and Fluvog. I bought the name, and but I struggled. It was the '80s, and it wasn't that easy, and cash flow, and I had to pay him back, and I was like, and I had a young family, and I was trying to keep everything together, and it was like always up to here. It's like you wouldn't have known that from the outside. Never known that, but internally, it was it was a struggle. Yeah, it was like exactly hanging on the edge, right? I opened up in Seattle, Washington, and I changed the name to John Fluvog. And when I did that, I suddenly became a designer. Why not? My name's on the front. I had all these weird different shoes. I had pony hair this and pointed that and skull buckles, and I went all through that 80s, that grunge thing, right? So that's kind of what inspired me. It was like that. It wasn't like I'm a designer and I have these amazing designs I have to throw the world. No, it went the other way around. It kind of forced me into it, where I realized it was a good business deal. This is like a good shtick here. I became John Fluvog the biodegradable. I made myself into a satanic character at one point. I did all these weird things and turned myself kind of into a character. I can tell pretty quick whether a committee designed it or whether a person designed it. And I can tell when a brand is just a made-up brand that's just selling schmuck. You know, and I think everyone kind of knows that. So when you walk into my store, I hope and I think you're going to go, hey, somebody made these shoes. And you kind of go, I wonder what he's like. I wonder what's up with that guy. One day at a staff meeting, a little staff we have, I'll get together, somebody piped up and said, I know who that somebody was, but they piped up and said, hey, that Space in Gastown's coming up. So I have this idea about myself or my brand that I can't have two stores in the same city because they're too unusual. My shoes are too unusual, it's like it's not gonna work, right? I was so wrong. I was so wrong. So I opened up down there and the other store kept on doing the same amount of business, actually got busier. And that store got busy and is doing well. And it's like, that was a mistake, John. You've been thinking wrong thinking all your life. So I don't call myself a good businessman. I just happened. And it was like somebody had to show me from outside, like, hey, excuse me, John, you know, that's gonna work okay. That kind of like hit me, and after a while, that had to kind of hit me on the head. So that's how it happened.
John Fluvog is responsible for me moving to Vancouver. I came here in 1989 for the first time with Slam, the husband, to meet the family. And the whole experience was so traumatic, I thought I would never, ever come back here, up until the very last day of my trip. We went shopping and we went to the Fluvog store on Granville Street, and I bought the most amazing pair of shoes, which I have to this day. They cost me a fortune. I think they were $450, and this is, 22 years ago or something ridiculous. And I took those shoes back to London, and everybody was just completely overwhelmed by how fantastic they were.
I had this way out there fashion sense, and I've always had that. I've always had this idea of, I got a good sense of what's hot and what's not and what's going on. I always had that, but then flip it over and get the other side and then mix that into a pot.
And then suddenly I was bragging about Vancouver. That, oh yeah, my husband's from Vancouver and I bought these shoes in Vancouver and it's this local designer and the store's called Fluvog and they were really expensive, like 3 mortgage payments, and suddenly, oh yeah, I'm gonna live there one day. Oh yeah, we're gonna definitely be moving to Vancouver.
If something's getting too popular, I never do it. I just can't, I don't know why, it just doesn't feel good to me. So I like doing different things, and so I do different things, and thank the Lord there's enough people out there that like the same things.
If it hadn't have been for us going down to the Fluvog store, I would never have moved here.
Life is funny, isn't it? It's like what really makes us at the end of the day are the odd things that we don't think about.
I'm fairly picky about women's shoes.
They're dark green suede with this huge silver buckle on them and a platform this big and a sling back and the heels like this big. Every time I wear my shoes, wherever I am, people always ask me where I got them.
I like a classic, simple shoe. So I mean, I don't like if that's a stiletto, fine. I don't like a lot of business on a shoe. I like I like clean lines, and I like simple and classic.
The thing about wearing Fluvog shoes is that it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you've suddenly elevated it to another level. So you can be wearing ripped up jeans with your ass hanging out of them, but you've got Fluvogs on, so you look fantastic. You could be wearing the most boring granny tweed skirt, but you've got your Fluvogs on, so suddenly you seem edgy. It doesn't matter what you put on if you've got your Fluvogs, and they're never in or out of fashion. The boots that I've got, one pair I've had for about 5 years and I can wear them every single winter. And the ones that made me move to Vancouver, I still wear religiously.
Men can be pretty fussy about their shoes too. I once knew a man who would only wear custom-made shoes from John Lobb in London. Another man I know has 50 pairs of Nikes in his closet in every conceivable combination of colors and styles, and every day he looks exactly the same.
I like nothing more than a good pair of shoes.
Particularly sandals in the summertime.
I don't get shoes. I mean, I like your shoes, You know what I mean? But I couldn't care less about shoes.
Well, it's the foundation, right? It's what you're standing on. I love shoes.
Yeah, I just like them. So I like a line, or I like a feeling, or I like something.
It's just all I can do to, and I usually take them from a show I'm in or something, right?
It feels right to me. It feels good. I think it's hard to explain, right? It's just me.
I wish I did like them because I like the smell of them and I love the leather, but not for me. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, no, I'm just crazy about shoes.
I'm not that big of a shoe person, but I will shop. I don't know whether it's being with Linda, but you do have an appreciation of shoes. I look at shoes and go, those are very nice, and I'm thinking that I'm showing my feminine side, but no, it's just an appreciation of a good shoe.
German Street,
Yes.
and where John Lobb and all the great shoemakers and clothiers. Hawks of Savile Row is there.
You can't go buy a pair of shoes at Value Village, of nice shoes. You can buy clothes. You can buy secondhand clothes. You can buy cheap clothes. You can buy clothes, but not shoes. You can't. You're kind of stuck, and they wear out and they get ratty looking.
We invested in these Crockett and Jones shoes, and we brought them home like we were bringing home, and they really are. They've been a part of our lives. That was over 10 years ago in these shoes, and he polishes them, and they're absolutely beautiful.
I think if you looked in my wardrobe, you'd say, what is this? Because none of it's consistent. I'm very emotionally driven by what I wear, so I'll wake up and I'm in this mood, and I'll put that on. It'll be, related to what I have to do that day.
And I got a pair of shoes that I wore to the Genies when Vince won Best Supporting Actor at the Genie Awards, and
they're in this incredible pair of patent Gucci heels that are very high.
gorgeous.
But
And they're
I
still
just
great.
I love it.
They're still
I love
perfect.
It.
But I've always liked quality things, and I've always liked things that have that aren't too gimmicky, that have a solidity to them. So, but yet are different.
I've spent hours in the shoe department, the women's shoe department.
She told me the reason that women like shoes, or to buy shoes, I think the trick is buying as well as liking, is they don't have to get undressed to try them on.
And he's a good eye. He's very patient.
Actually, I'm now even moving to purses, which I'm really starting to worry about myself. Only because she used to make me actually hold the purses, and she said, well, just see what it looks like. I said, what?
He certainly, he has impeccable taste.
I'm the new modern man, metrosexual.
So, what's the first thing you do with a new pair of shoes? Hide them from your mate, of course. He'd have a heart attack if he knew what you paid for them. And he knows you don't need them. You have many pairs of shoes. But there is something you know that he doesn't know. If you can actually manage to wear those cruel shoes out on a date with your man, you know the evening is going to end well. There's just something about the way an impossibly high heel makes your legs rise to the occasion and your man pay very close attention.
I'm a boot person. I have boot fetishes.
Oh, yeah, I've noticed a couple that don't have much wear on the bottom.
You usually ask for rubber boots, don't you?
Oh yeah, I love her in her wellies.
I'll wear them outside, but yeah, there's a few that made their way into some unusual places.
What are you talking about?
Nothing. When we're in New York, we
Who's
like to
that
go.
with?
You. Don't you remember?
I found these boots. I loved them. And I bought 2 pairs, put them on my Visa. They were $1,000 each, and I had no idea. But that said, they'll last me a life. These are the best boots I've ever bought in my life.
Oh, I'm sure there's many. They're in many closets.
I have authentic flamenco shoes from Spain, but I never did take Rosario's class because I wound up going on tour.
I have these fantastic patent leather red platform heels. with little satin bows on the front.
You know, now, of course, I would probably never, ever buy shoes like that.
And they sit in my closet like some art installation because I can't wear.
No, there are certain closets I don't go into.
The shoes that the song was written about are a pair of high heel Mary Jane. They were brown leather with white stitching. Not my first choice, but they were what was available at that moment in that store. And I got them and I wore them on stage every time I did that song for a number of years. And they've just been placed in the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto as my tango shoes. So that happened this year.
How many shoes is too many shoes? Well, we need a pair of flip-flops, running shoes, a boot, a flat shoe for walking, and a pump for dress-up. So, what are those 50 other pairs of shoes in our closet all about? Fashion, darling.
My wife said you could always tell someone by looking at the shoes.
Shoes are the foundation of who you are. That's where it kind of starts to me.
And I didn't really know what she meant.
It's kind of the last thing that a lot of people will think about, really, is their shoes.
If you see a good pair of shoes, you just have to buy them.
But to a person who's aware, it's the first thing that you're going to think about and that you notice.
I have an entire cupboard that's devoted to my shoes.
She's a very big shoe person. We're talking Marcos kind of, Imelda Marcos, that kind of, that kind of shoe.
I put them at the end of the bed so that then the first thing I wake up to in the morning are my new shoes. So I kind of have like this little sort of altar for new shoes. And then he knows he's in real trouble when the altar's clear because he knows that she's now going to go off and buy another pair.
I said, Linda, you must have 100 pairs of shoes. Oh, we went upstairs and counted. We were over 100 when we stopped.
Too many shoes.
I think the last count I had 105 pairs of shoes.
Too many shoes.
So is there anyone out there who doesn't get excited about shoes? Well, you're not alone. Here's our resident shoe curmudgeon, Patrick Malia.
I'll never understand people who obsess over shoes.
I don't get shoes.
They go on your feet, they prevent you from stepping on stuff. The shoes, not the people who obsess about them. Aha, aha, aha. Now don't get me wrong, if I see a hot pair of heels or some sweet leather knee highs or that sandal thing that girls wear with the strap that goes all the way up a delicious calf, I will lose my mind. But that's not because I don't love shoes, it's because I'm a sick freak who loves looking at ladies. Yeah.
Step on a nail.
I just don't get the shoe obsession. I understand that ladies are into it because they know the reaction it's gonna get from guys and other girls who know that that girl with those shoes is gonna get a reaction from guys who like girls in those shoes. I'm just saying that when it comes to the dudes and their obsession with shoes, I just don't understand it. In fact, I'm wary of a guy who's obsessed about shoes. Listen, guys, unless your goal is to conquer Project Runway, and good for you, if you can, all the more to you. I can't do it. Look at me. There's nothing getting conquered with this. Don't expect me to squeal with delight when you bring in your new Nike high tops. I could care less. I'm just saying, guys, let's just be guys. I remember at a time when a dude only had to have 2, maybe 3 pairs of shoes. One for funnin', one for running, one to look stunning. Don't get me started on flip-flops, because those aren't even shoes. They're actually just a thing that you get at the dollar store during a hot day in the summer that you wear on your feet to stay cool and not step on gum. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the shoe obsession isn't mine and I don't understand it, but I can appreciate it. Ladies, if you want to obsess about your shoes, go ahead and do it, because Lord knows me and the other sick freaks love it when you strap them on. Until next time, I'm Patrick Malia.
No man would buy or wear an uncomfortable pair of shoes, but women do it all the time. Why? Well, I'm reminded of the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, The Little Mermaid. She gave up her glamorous fishtail and her carefree life in the sea to have a pair of human legs that were just stabbing her with pain with every step she took. Why did she do that? Love, of course.
Jen will put on a pair of shoes and we'll be going out somewhere and I'll say, "You're gonna wear those? Really?"
These shoes, I mean, they make your legs look fantastic. And you see women wearing these things, and I say, my God, your legs look fantastic. And I love
I say the same thing, and we're both saying the same thing about the same
for different reasons.
I think it's just the fact that you get to a certain pain threshold. It's kind of like giving birth, you know? That there's a real reward at the end. And the reward at the end of being sort of numb from the ankles down is that you look fantastic.
I think, and they've done studies, that when women dress up and buy these things, they say they're usually not doing it so much for the men, they're doing it for other women.
You're taller than all your friends, you can look the men in the eye, and everybody wants to know where you got your shoes. So really you don't care that you're in so much pain.
I'd love to wear them, but I call them 60-minute shoes, because that's as long as you can wear them.
Can't stand heels. I'll wear them, then take them off.
There's time for high heels, absolutely, but not, not at 12 noon running out the door to get your lunch, maybe, and you're wearing a pair of 4-inch heels and then hobbling, because it looks a little silly, I think.
I worked with Dance Theatre of Harlem, and I worked with the Alvin Ailey Company. And the women who have such difficult times after a very short period of time in their careers because they've hurt their feet so much.
I find as an actor, though, they help me find the character. If my character wears little tennis shoes, it tells me a lot about how they stand, how they move their bodies.
I like to walk in shoes that are comfortable. I don't like to feel that I'm being pinched at every step.
Bare feet work for me. I'm easy.
I've taken shoes back to the place and asked the people if they would stretch the shoe. I liked the shoe, and it fits everything except over one big bunion on one of my feet.
Men's platform shoes haven't really come back. When I was in high school, men wore platform shoes, big platform shoes.
And a lot of women will make a comment when they're first dating a man. They'll be quite aware of what kind of shoes he has or what he's wearing, because it shows something about him. Maybe something about how much he cares about himself. It's quite telling.
I knew a guy who wore Cuban heels practically every day because his wife was 2 inches taller than he was. And his ego would not allow him to be seen walking down the street as the pipsqueak with the big, tall, blonde lady. So he wore these high heels all the time. So they were pretty high.
You don't need to do that. You don't need to be wearing those high heels. No.
Well, I got these Vivienne Westwood shoes that are just so completely impractical that you can't walk in them. You can't even really stand in them. You can't even really lean in them. I suppose all you can do is sort of lie down in them or sit and show them off, at a dinner party or something.
I guess it's supposed to make the leg look elongated and the calf spread out on the side.
Or it's a conspiracy by men to make sure that women can never move fast.
I think that degree of stumbling enters into it as well. Maybe they look like they've had maybe one too many drink, and that's attractable to men. But no,
in England, they have this expression when you get pregnant there. They say you fell pregnant. And I'm starting to think now that maybe the way this happens is they buy those shoes, and so as they walk, when they fall, they trip, and then a man is sort of coincidentally there, and he impregnates her as she's falling. And that's how and in hard, tough economic times, maybe they have to do this to keep the population up.
Holy cow, what was in that coffee?
Maybe it's because I'm tall, but I hardly ever see a woman's shoes. The only thing I really notice is how high they are. I mean, so I really like tall women. So if the shoes lift them up, that's great. But I don't actually notice how they got there.
I found that I'm not looking down all the time. If the woman is attractive, I'm not necessarily going to be looking at her feet. Eye contact.
Shoes have been with us for 40,000 years at least. Once our civilization advanced, they became not just protection for our feet. Shoes would reveal your economic and social status and your personality. Shoes were also used to absurdist ends, like 2-foot-tall platforms in the 18th century, long-toed winkle pickers in medieval times, and foot binding in ancient China. So there's really no sense or logic to our passion for shoes of fabulous shapes and colors and elevations and decorations, is there? I think it's all about self-image. After all, even if we don't have perfect height or weight or features or whatever, most of us have pretty reasonable looking feet, and a pretty pair of shoes can cover a multitude of sins. The only thing we're more passionate about than our shoes is probably our hair, but that's for another show. I'm Pia Shandel. Thanks for watching. I gotta get these shoes off.